They didn't know I was already 3 steps ahead. The moment I found out my husband was cheating, I was standing right next to him. Not hiding behind a door, not scrolling through his phone at 2 a.m., not playing detective with a magnifying glass. I was standing 3 feet away at our neighbor's backyard barbecue, holding a paper plate loaded with potato salad, smiling at the same people I had smiled at for 8 years. And then I saw it. He tilted his phone, barely an inch, but just enough. A name, a heart emoji, and 4 words that quietly dismantled every single thing I thought I knew about my life. Last night was perfect. My heart didn't shatter. There was no dramatic gasp, no trembling hands, no dropped plate. Instead, something far more unsettling happened. Everything inside me went completely still, like a machine powering down, like my body already knew before my brain caught up. Oh, so this is what betrayal feels like. Everything okay? My husband Daniel asked, turning toward me with that warm, practiced smile I had fallen in love with a decade ago. I smiled back, took a slow sip of lemonade. Just the heat, I said. He kissed my forehead, and I smiled wider, because I had already decided, in that exact moment, that screaming was the last thing I was going to do. The part nobody warns you about. People think betrayal looks like anger, broken dishes, tears at midnight, confrontations in the kitchen. But real betrayal, the deep, deliberate kind, doesn't announce itself with a storm. It arrives quietly, like a slow leak you didn't notice until the whole floor was underwater. They didn't know what I noticed once I started paying attention. The extra care in how he dressed on Tuesday nights, the new gym bag that never smelled like a gym, the way his phone was suddenly always face down on every surface, the polite distance he kept, not cruel, not cold, just careful. That politeness, God, that politeness. Cheaters don't always become monsters. Sometimes they become almost unbearably kind, guilty and gentle, thoughtful in a way that twists the knife deeper, because you realize it was never natural, it was performance. Her name was Maya, and she wasn't a stranger. She worked in the HR department at Daniel's company. He was her direct supervisor. And according to the messages I would soon discover, she had known my name, the color of our kitchen, and exactly how long Daniel and I had been married. Does Rachel know anything? She has no idea. She trusts me completely. I read that message 3 times. The 4th time, I stopped feeling pain and started making a plan. They didn't know I was already reading everything. The morning after the barbecue, I made breakfast like nothing had happened. Eggs, coffee, light conversation about the weather. Then I borrowed Daniel's iPad. Not secretly, openly, casually. My phone died. Mind if I use yours for a bit? He handed it over without hesitation, because guilty people convince themselves they've covered their tracks. And that confidence, that's the exact moment they stop being careful. What he forgot, Apple devices sync. Within 20 minutes, I had read everything. Hundreds of messages, photos, plans, inside jokes, a relationship that had been running parallel to mine for over a year. But the real treasure wasn't the affair itself. It was one specific detail buried in the middle of those messages. Maya worked in HR. Daniel was her direct supervisor. And in the corporate world, that's not a romantic complication. That's a policy violation, a career-ending liability, a documented, fireable offense. I set the iPad down, I finished my coffee, and smiled for the first time since the barbecue. The photo that changed everything. 2 years earlier, Daniel had insisted we host his company's annual holiday party at our house. It was a big event, 60 employees, catered food, a photographer hired to document the whole evening. I had always liked those photos. Our house looks warm and full of life. They didn't know I still had every single one of them. I pulled up the folder on my laptop and started scrolling, and there it was, time-stamped, dated, crystal clear. Daniel and Maya, standing close in the corner of our living room, her hand on his arm, his head tilted to hers at an angle that was never just professional. 18 months before he told her last night was perfect. 18 months before I became she has no idea. The photo didn't just prove the affair, it proved the timeline, it proved the premeditation, and it was taken inside my own home, at a party I had organized, at a table I had decorated. I saved a copy in 3 separate places. Then I opened a new document and started writing. Silent planning looks like nothing from the outside. For the next 60 weeks, I was the perfect wife. I cooked, I laughed, I asked about his day. I attended his work events in heels and smiled at his colleagues like I had no idea what any of them were hiding. Meanwhile, I was building something. They didn't know I had already contacted a divorce attorney. They didn't know I had already separated our finances. They didn't know I had already signed a lease on a new apartment. And they didn't know that 2 days before the company's annual leadership recognition event, the one where Daniel was receiving an award for excellence in management, they didn't know that 2 days before that event, I sent a very detailed, very documented email to the company's compliance department. The email included the messages, the dates, the photos, the timestamps, the policy language, everything formatted neatly, professionally, without a single emotional sentence. Because revenge isn't rage, it's architecture. The night of the award ceremony, I wore a blue dress, the one Daniel always said was his favorite, the one Maya had texted him about once, writing, "Your wife has great taste." Oh, Maya, you have no idea. The ballroom was full, executives in suits, polished smiles, glasses of wine catching the light. Daniel was near the front, glowing. He was going to receive a leadership award in front of 200 colleagues. He spotted me across the room and his face lit up. That smile, that practiced, perfect, lying smile. I smiled back just as wide. The ceremony began. Awards were given, speeches were made. And then Daniel walked on stage to collect his plaque for exceptional leadership and integrity in people management. Integrity. He began his speech, thanks to the executives, thanked his team, thanked me, my wonderful, supportive wife, with a wave in my direction. The audience applauded. I stood up. The moment the room went silent. "Actually, Daniel," I said, my voice was calm, warm even, like I was about to make a toast. "I think you forgot someone." The room stilled. 200 heads turned. Daniel's smile flickered, just for a half second, just enough. "I think Maya deserves some recognition too," I said pleasantly. Supporting a direct supervisor through so many late-night strategy sessions at hotel bars must be exhausting work. And then, because I had tested it 3 times at home, I connected my phone to the event's AirPlay system and put the messages on the 12-foot screen behind Daniel's head. Not all of them, just enough. The timestamps, the hotel names, the "she has no idea," and the holiday party photo taken right there in our living room 18 months before anyone claimed anything had started. The silence that followed was the most beautiful sound I have ever heard. Then came the whispers, then the gasps, then Maya stood up across the room, face drained of color, as 200 people turned to look at her. Daniel stood on that stage, award in hand, with nowhere to go. He had managed people for 15 years. He had never looked more managed in his life. The payoff they never saw coming. Here is what happened in the next 72 hours. The compliance investigation that had been quietly opened 2 days earlier moved forward with full documentation. Daniel was placed on immediate administrative leave. Maya's employment was terminated for violation of the company's relationship disclosure policy. The leadership award was quietly withdrawn. And when Daniel came home that night, humiliated, desperate, rehearsing the apology he thought would fix everything, he found a silent house. Closets half empty, car gone from the driveway, wedding ring on the kitchen counter, and one envelope on the table. Inside was a single handwritten note. No anger, no accusations, no wasted emotion. It said, "I wasn't clueless. I was patient. There's a difference. R." That was it. No final argument, no tearful goodbye, no dramatic last scene.